So, and then finally, Gunther talked about medicine 1.0, medicine 2.0. We had Web 1.0, which was publish only. Web 2.0 is read-write, right? We can put things out on the web. We can share information with each other. No less an authority than Tim Berners-Lee, considered the founder of the web, gave a talk at TED Talks this spring where he talked about what's next for the internet, and it's beyond anything I had realized. It's not just aggregating similar public pieces of published data. He's talking about now intelligent agent software that can go out and derive new information, create new knowledge, but it can't do it if it's looking at other people's interpretations. It has to be looking at the raw data. So his TED Talk, it's a great video, it ends with him actually getting people to start chanting, "Raw data now, raw data now." And we, I think, ought to be thinking along similar lines. Takeaways. It's my data, it's your data. Innovation depends on good quality data and reliable workflows. Let us help. And then part 5, I got to the point this year where I said, I can't keep doing the day job and do this at night, so this is my disclosure of financial interest. I have a financial interest in keeping myself funded so I can do this. So I have gone into business for myself. And to wrap it all up, here's 2.8 years in pictures. This is me 3 days before that diagnostic x-ray. I didn't realize it at the time, but I was not looking too good. Then by Halloween in October at the company Halloween party, this was me kind of grinning at the reaper. I didn't lose my hair due to chemo. Kidney cancer doesn't use chemo, but my hair became an absolute mess, and I just said screw it and chopped it all off. So that's me, very happy 10 months later. This is me with my mom, not at my funeral, but at my daughter's wedding in May. It was a great thing. It was wonderful. And here's a real kicker for you. This is me last Sunday with my bone surgeon because somehow or other something has happened to me and I have decided to get interested in my health. And I rode in a cancer fundraiser. I haven't ridden a bike since I was 20 years old. Right? But this June, I said to my wife, you know what? I want a bike. And we went and got a yard sale bike, and it turned out I loved it, and I was good at it, and blah, 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 blah. And just to show that there's all this healthcare stuff is really serious, I lifted up my shorts leg, got out a magic marker, and wrote a note to my bone surgeon, cut here, to avoid any chance of any wrong side errors. So that's it. So here's something to think about. Could it be that engaged patients might take better care of themselves once you really get that all the knowledge isn't out there, that I have something to do with it? That's my coach. I'm the one who's on the court playing the game. So let us get involved. Give us our data. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Dave. You almost got people chanting, "Give us our data." So we have about 25 minutes for discussion and questions. So, and in general, we try to leave ample time for discussion at this meeting because we want this to be an interactive meeting. So there are 2 microphones here in the auditorium, and somebody is coming, which is great. First question.
So, Dave, I mean, you're absolutely correct, and I laud you on a really excellent presentation. And congratulations on beating your cancer. You're a very strong individual and someone to be looked up to. I think that you have hit upon one of the most essential issues in healthcare today. And I can tell you that as a physician, I remember treating patients, and I've treated patients, but I remember one in particular who came to me with a lesion in her brain who needed a tumor resected. And had actually already received misinformation, and someone had suggested just watching it. And we removed the tumor, found it was a melanoma. And the tumor, after surgery, she came back and we were talking, and the question came up, have you ever been diagnosed with melanoma before? And the answer to the question was no, it never had a problem. She left the office and was seeing the next patient, and she came back in, popped her head into it, and says, but I did have a skin biopsy about 2 years ago, and I assumed it was normal. I never heard anything about it. And I actually knew the dermatologist. He was, in the same building I was working in, and called him. Excellent reputation, excellent dermatologist. I mean, renowned in the area. And asked him to look up the biopsy results. And he said, yeah, sure, Luke, I'll be right back. And he came, and it was a moment of silence. I heard him ruffling papers. And after a moment of silence, he says, I don't know how this happened, he said, boy. But the result is in the chart. It was melanoma, and there's no signature. I sign and date every paper I've seen. Someone in my office popped it into the paper chart without my having a chance to review it. And the patient, was upset, of course, but she accepted it as human error, and she passed on about 7 months later. Since then, and with other episodes, I see this happen over and over again. The issue is essentially that. How do you get the data to the patient? It's really not even a technology question. It's a social question. I mean, just getting your own data, even as a physician out of a hospital, is almost impossible. I mean, sometimes it takes days to get the data extracted. And I have colleagues, friends in a project I'm working on, who basically, children who with extended stays after birth with long records, they can't get the records to bring to the pediatrician so the pediatrician can be aware. So you've hit right on it. How do we fix this? In other words, doctors will point to things like HIPAA, and they'll say, oh, I can't fax these records to you because of HIPAA law. Total falsehood. It's not true. It's not just technology that we need. We need someone to say, you have a right to those records within 24 hours and at this price. And that should be not a state or federal. It should be an internet. It's a human right. And I totally agree with you. How do you make that happen?
Well, so you touched on a lot of really powerful things there. How you make it happen, number one, is get started, for heaven's sake. For another thing, I'd recommend, spread the word about that Health Data Rights Declaration. On the subject of that information going into that folder, you may have heard earlier this summer there was a study announced that 1 in 14 lab results doesn't get communicated to the patient, 7%. Now, imagine if, just take your head out of healthcare, imagine if 7% of credit card transactions never ended up on a statement. All right, now if it's your credit card, you might be happy about this, but the merchant certainly wouldn't. And here's the thing, at work in my day job, where I still work part-time, I manage the sales automation system called Salesforce.com. We can set up workflows that say, after 3 days, send an email to somebody to remind them of this. Or when a new inquiry comes in, automatically send out a thank you email of the following form. These tools exist, and you know how much it costs to get started? That's a big, hairy, complicated system. Well, no, you go to Salesforce.com and you click free trial and you start using it. That's cloud computing. Not only that, I was at a conference, the Tepper conference in Palm Springs in February, and a high-level AMA official talked about the nightmare that happened when he installed his medical records system. Now, if somebody had tried to infiltrate a medical records conference with a horror story to defer adoption, this would have been a great way to do it. He lost all his data. The guy who manages his database couldn't get it back. And the following speaker said, don't you know about cloud computing? We have all our data stored in Google Docs and Salesforce.com. They do the backups for us. So there are technologies out there. Now, I will say, if you think back to when